Goldman Sachs has a culture problem. I'm aware that the new CEO, David Solomon, has come out and professed that Goldman Sachs generally acts in good faith, and he believes he's clean house. The problem is, unless he deals with me, I'm the CEO of eToys that was stolen by Goldman Sachs and Bain Capital during federal case, because Goldman Sachs' lawyer in Delaware is MNAT.com, and MNAT lied under oath to become my lawyer and eToys' lawyer when I was head of eToys, court appointed. And I gave authorization to sue Goldman Sachs because when we went public in 1999, the stock went to $85 a share, but we only got less than $20 a share for the company. That was a pump and dump stock fraud spinning scheme that basically looted hundreds of millions of dollars, close to $1 billion, from our company. And Goldman Sachs allowed its law firm in Delaware, M&AT, to lie under oath to become our lawyer to destroy the evidence in the eToys v. Goldman Sachs case. And M&AT nominated Paul Roy Traub, who was the creditors committee attorney, to be the lawyer to sue Goldman Sachs. So in essence, Goldman Sachs nominated through its lawyer a Ponzi scheme partner because Paul Traub was the partner of Mark Dreyer that settled our eToys case, as you can look at the docket record, v. Goldman Sachs in New York Supreme Court. But Paul Traub also, while he was doing these crimes, was partners of the Tom Petters Ponzi. And prior to that time, in 1999, Goldman Sachs and Bain Capital and Thomas Lee Partners and Mitt Romney defrauded Mattel in a cookbook scheme. And the reason they got away with it is an M&AT partner, Cone Connolly, became the federal prosecutor over the case, but didn't recuse himself from the case, disclosing the fact that he was directly linked to the people that perpetrated the crimes. So this conflict of interest is corruption, fraud, and cover-up. And Donald Trump was informed of this by me. I sued him, but the clerk of court wouldn't let the record be entered until after Cone Connolly's friend, Jay Clayton, was confirmed as head of the SEC. Jay Clayton is partners of Sullivan and Cromwell, which defended Goldman Sachs in our eToys v. Goldman Sachs case. So they are knowledgeable of the fraud and corruption that went on, and they're complicit in the collusion to cover up the case. Now, when all this was about to become to a head in 2013, after Romney lost in 2012 his chance to become president, that's when they rushed to settle the case for $7.5 million, which M&AT, Paul Traub, and his partner Barry Gold, who they put in my place when they illegally locked me out of eToys, telling the court that I waived my right to be the head of eToys and my commissions for managing the company. So Barry Gold, who worked under Romney and Michael Glazier at Stage Stores, hired Paul Traub. Then they moved over from the Stage Store bankruptcy to eToys, but they had an inside edge because when Mitt Romney, Bain Capital, and Thomas Lee merged the learning company with Mattel that caused the $4 billion loss, Mitt Romney's contingency reportedly got 12 million shares of Mattel that put him inside so that he could march toward the ownership of Toys R Us. This inside, collusive, systemic, and incestuous parties always playing merry-go-round and lying under oath saying that they weren't connected to each other is how Bain Capital wound up with Toys R Us. And they're doing the same thing that they did where eToys and KB were in bankruptcy multiple times but wound up back at Bain Capital at Toys R Us. Toys R Us has filed bankruptcy. They refused to take $700 million, which was a lot of money, for 300 stores, saying it wasn't enough, but nobody's auditing how that really worked out. But now, all of a sudden, Toys R Us is reopening as Jeffrey Kids, or whatever name that they intend to use. It's the same collusion and fraud And if David Solomon doesn't turn around and capitulate that they did this before he got there, then he's becoming duplicitous in this massive public stock destroying fraud and bankruptcy fraud, which are both racketeering. Let that sink in, folks. Goldman Sachs and Bain Capital benefited in racketeering, and since Romney bragged that he got his hundreds of millions of dollars through Bain Capital, then he participates in the fraud if he doesn't give back the money. And that's called clawing back. And I intend to claw back the money that Mitt Romney got and Bain Capital got from destroying our eToys company. And I intend to turn around and hold Goldman Sachs accountable for the fraud, the stock swindle, and the destroy of our public company and bankruptcy fraud in collusion with Paul Roy Traub, M&AT, Combe Connolly, and Bain Capital.
Well, why don't we go to the house on the lake?
Justice is coming. This is a mile-high house of untenable cards that sooner or later is going to collapse on these guys. And the sooner, the better. It's been 19 years the victims have suffered, and Toys R Us could have been saved.